Who's in? That's the question that we all come here to find out as we wrapped up our first college football revamped dynasty, which was definitely a season to remember. And it all comes down to this selection show and playoff committee to see which 4 teams have a shot at winning it all. 4 spots. No, not 8, not 12, only 4. And it looks as if we have 6 teams that are in the running for these 4 spots. Each teams have their argument for why they should be in, along with reasoning why. Let's go ahead and take a look at these contenders and get to know the teams who are desperate for a spot in this year's college football playoff. Starting off with this year's, what seems to be clear number 1, based upon their undefeated record in a Power 5 conference. A lot of speculation that Iowa State will be the number 1 team in the country. We had a lot of movement in the Big 12 conference. Iowa State is definitely a team that benefited from that, and with the senior leadership, this team led by Brock Purdy, a very dynamic offense with a defense that is not typical that you would see in college football, running a 3-3-5. It's very different, and because of that unique defense, they have no problem taking advantage of confused offenses and creating turnovers. They are an undefeated team in the Big 12, but they're not just undefeated. All year long, they've been very consistent in putting the smackdown on teams. Rather, it was beating Iowa 24-0, going to Houston and beating them 31-16, beating Baylor 34-20, or winning their conference championship 37-7. They've been putting on a show all year, and they're looking forward to doing it again in the playoffs. Now, the second team in the conversation is going to be Mac Brown's North Carolina Tar Heels, led by Sam Howell. They finished the year going 12-1, had a undefeated regular season with a marquee win over North Carolina State, who was the number 8 team in the country, 28-21, which is probably their best win. They have a very good offense, an explosive offense. However, their downfall is, other than that North Carolina State win, when they got to the ACC championship game, they lost to Clemson 7-24. So when it matters most and everything's on the line, and some would say that was kind of their playoff game, they got blown out. However, they definitely deserve to be a part of the conversation. In the third team, of course, is your Oklahoma Boomer Sooner baby. The Sooners finished the season 10-2, with the most impressive win was a controversial win against Alabama there in the final 20 seconds on the road. However, they lost 2 games early to Georgia and Tennessee. The reasons why Oklahoma wouldn't be in the playoffs is because they don't have an SEC title. Hell, they weren't even in the game, but they did beat Alabama head-to-head technically, and that's part of their case is, hey, we beat Alabama. Will it be enough? We'll find out. Another team going for a playoff bid is, of course, Alabama. There's no question that they are going to be in. Just an absolutely dominant season from them, a classic Coach Saban season. Their only slip-up of the year was, like I just mentioned, was against Oklahoma there in the last 20 seconds. They had to play Georgia twice this year, and they beat them twice. That right there is enough. They're SEC champs. They're going to be in. Just a matter of seeding. Watching Bryce Young in this up-tempo offense throw into his variety of weapons, Jameson Williams is just an athletic freak, probably the fastest receiver in the country. We got 2 more teams for you guys to get to know. Next up, after a very impressive season, and they finished as the Big Ten champions. They finished the season 12-1, are your Michigan State Spartans, only losing 1 game at Iowa, 14-28 back in October. A few marquee wins are at Notre Dame, 41-17. They went to Michigan and beat them 40-16. And then they beat Ohio State 35-34. And they're Big Ten champs. They have plenty of things working for them in their favor to get into the playoffs. You know, watching them with their defense, with Beasley and Panasiuk off the edge. And on the offensive side, this is probably the most explosive Michigan State offense we've ever seen. Peyton Thorne at quarterback, throwing to Naylor and Jaden Reed. They have multiple weapons that can hurt you on the offensive side of the ball. Oh, and not to mention Kenneth Walker, one of the best running backs in the country. Michigan State has definitely done some good things, and I'm really happy to see that they are in the running to make the playoffs. And the final team that seems to be in the conversation year in and year out to make the college football playoffs are your Clemson Tigers. They get the job done this year and win the ACC championship and finish the season 12-1, with their only loss coming from Miami back in September, 21-24. Now, we all know that the ACC is not one of the toughest conferences in the country, so it would seem that they have a relatively easy schedule, but some of their marquee wins this year would be against North Carolina State, winning 34-17. They beat Pittsburgh 37-0 at Pittsburgh. They went to South Carolina and beat them 33-27. And then in the ACC SEC title game, they look damn good, beating a hot North Carolina team 24-7. The Clemson Tigers are nothing to laugh at, as they made a serious case in making the college football playoff. Will it be enough? We'll find out. Like I said, you can make arguments for all of these different teams because they all are in their own unique situations. You know, your strength of schedule and your quality wins matter a lot, along with if you won a conference championship, because winning your conference championship is not an easy thing to do. And it's not always, oh, this team has one loss. A lot of times it matters when you lose. So, you know, a couple of these teams lost back in September. They've definitely have had a chance to prove themselves since then. So who's in? Let's find out. Okay, so how this works is we are going to unveil 1 through 4, and then we'll show 5 and 6. We'll react to them as we see them. All right, who is at the number 1 spot? Number 1 team in the country. All right, there we go. We got the Iowa State Cyclones, for the first time ever, are going to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. All right, who's number 2? The Crimson Tide. The Alabama Crimson Tide are going to be the number 2 team in this year's college football playoff. No complaints there. They won the SEC championship and they beat Georgia twice, so I get it. All right, who's the number 3 team? Wow. All right, the Clemson Tigers, congratulations, are going to clinch that number 3 spot in this year's college football playoff. All right, we got 1 spot left with 3 teams on the edge of their seats. Oklahoma, North Carolina, and Michigan State. Who's going to get the number 4 spot in this year's playoff? Wow. It is going to be the Michigan State Spartans clenching that number 4 seed. Although I did not see that one coming. The Big Ten champs are the number 4 team in the playoffs. Let's see who's 5 and 6. Ah, okay. Oklahoma's gonna come in at number 5 in the country, which would make, there we go, North Carolina number 6. Ladies and gentlemen, in our first college football revamped dynasty, our first playoff selection show, we have Iowa State at 1, Alabama 2, Clemson 3, and Michigan State at number 4. Now, why did Michigan State get that number 4 spot over Oklahoma? It's probably the question a lot of people in Norman want to find out. So I believe what it is when you look at their full body of work and the wins that Michigan State has, going to Michigan, which is a current top 10 team, and beating them soundly, and then the very next week beating Ohio State 35-34, and they beat Michigan 40-16. They beat Wisconsin 28-7. They went to Notre Dame and beat them 41-17. Had to play Wisconsin again in the Big Ten title game, and they won that one as well. Only dropped 1 game that was back in October, early October, so they had plenty of time to make that one up. They're a Power 5 champion. There's no question Oklahoma, their win against Alabama was definitely impressive. However, when you compare the two, a win against Alabama versus a team that is in a Power 5 conference and they won all of those big games and they won the championship, that's going to overrule a win against Bama 9 times out of 10. And they wouldn't have gotten in over Clemson, mainly because Clemson is a 1-loss team and they're coming off a very impressive conference championship win. If that game was close, maybe you could make an argument for Oklahoma to jump in there, but that game wasn't even close. Clemson dominated. So that is kind of why the committee did what they did, and that's why the top 4 is what it is. So let's go ahead and look at all of our bowl matchups, at least all of the big bowl games that we're going to be having. Starting off in the college football playoff, in the Chick-Fil-A Peach Bowl, we got number 1 Iowa State versus number 4 Michigan State. Then our other college football playoff game, we have the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl between the Clemson Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're going to be meeting out there in the desert. The granddaddy of them all, we are going to be having the Big Ten's representative, Rutgers, who's number 11 in the country, go up against the Utah Utes at number 16 in the country. Neither one of these teams don't have much history of being here, so this one should be a banger. In this year's All-State Sugar Bowl between the SEC and the Big Ten, we got your Oklahoma Sooners at number 5 in the country going up against the Ohio State University at number 7, which in my opinion is probably going to be the best non-playoff game in this year's bowl season. We got Cincinnati and NC State squaring off in the Citrus Bowl. North Carolina in the Louisiana Raging Cajuns going at it in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. I love the Raging Cajuns' chances in this one. And in this year's Capital One Orange Bowl, we got a little rematch. We got the Georgia Bulldogs going up against the Michigan Wolverines in a classic Big Ten versus SEC showdown. And in this year's Outback Bowl, we got the Arkansas Razorbacks going up against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. These are all looking like really good games. And another Big Ten versus SEC showdown. Wisconsin going up against Texas A&M in the Music City Bowl. Oh, this one will be fun. We got Coastal Carolina going up against the big dogs out of Florida, the Florida Gators, in this year's Military Bowl. And in the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, we got Penn State and Boise State going at it. We are in for a very exciting bowl season and should be pretty exciting college football playoff. I'm going to be uploading both of those games to the channel so that way we can finish off this season in style. If you guys like this content and enjoyed this video, and if you're excited about these matchups, please consider hitting that sub button for me. I definitely appreciate it. I'll be back real soon with this bowl content. Until then, I'll catch you later.